My 45 male girlfriend 40 female has been having sex with my daughter 23 female. My hands are shaking badly as I type this. I am confused and worried and more than a little angry. I am the single father of 3 wonderful boys and a lovely girl. Their mother passed away several years ago, and this is my first venture into love after her death. My girlfriend made it clear from the very first day that she was bisexual, and this didn't bother me in the least. I noticed early on that my girlfriend and daughter were very, very close, and frequently spent days out on the town, getting their nails done and shopping and stuff like that. I was overjoyed that they were getting along, but I was worried regarding my son's 20 male, 18 male and 15 male, because they haven't been bonding with my girlfriend at all. My girlfriend has been staying over at my house during lockdown, along with all of my children. Things have been a little tense because my eldest son and her don't get along, and would erupt into an argument at the slightest thing. 2 days ago, my oldest son sat me down while my girlfriend and daughter were out doing essential shopping, and said that he had something important to talk with me about. He was obviously very nervous, and apologized for keeping it a secret for so long, but he said that my girlfriend and daughter had been having sex behind my back for an undetermined amount of time. As you can imagine, I was shocked, and automatically assumed that it was some cruel joke. But when my girlfriend and daughter came home, I confronted them about it and my daughter just fell to the pieces, crying and apologizing by saying that she was just so confused and didn't know what to do with herself, and my girlfriend was so pretty and my daughter just couldn't help herself. My girlfriend tried to keep face by saying that she had no idea what my kids were on about, but the facade didn't last. I am shocked. I don't know how to process the fact that the woman I love most in the world and my girlfriend have been having sex. My oldest son has been staying in his room for the most part, and I haven't really talked to him yet. I don't know how to feel about him keeping the secret, but most of all, I don't know how to broach the subject. Worst of all, my younger sons overheard the conversation because they were in an adjacent room, and now are aware of the whole ducked up situation. I think this relationship is mostly done for. The fact that your girlfriend is bi doesn't mean you are automatically in an open relationship, unless you've had an agreement that she can roam free. She was cheating on you. That she cheated on you with someone in your family is next level shitty. I just hope he doesn't hold this against his oldest son. Keeping that secret must have already been really hard, and if gets blamed for this mess, that's gonna be extra shitty. Leave the girlfriend immediately. She has got to go. Have a conversation with your daughter about it. Have a conversation with your oldest son about it. Let him know you appreciate him telling you and you don't blame him for keeping it a secret. Then have a conversation as a family. I don't know how any of those conversations should go, but reassure them that you love them and this may be a rough situation but you all will pull through. Your son must have been in an emotional storm. He didn't keep the secret. His attitude against your ex-GF show how all this was burning inside him. The fear of destroying your happiness and formally explain why he needed time to find the courage to talk to you. Don't blame him please. Stay strong. Second story. My mum cheated on my dad and left him for his best friend. She made him look like he was the one at fault and I 23 female developed a resentment towards him. I recently found out what happened and I feel guilty for being an asshole to my dad and I want to make it up to him. English is not my first language. My mum had been married to my dad for 9 years before she cheated and left him for his best friend who is my stepdad. My father served in the army and his best friend was this rich guy who I saw hanging out with my mum at that time. During the divorce my mum told me that my dad was abusive, controlling and was not there emotionally, that's why she was leaving him. She told me that my dad treated her badly, called her names and did not love her. At the time I was only 10 years old. My mum got primary custody and dad was stuck paying child support. I only got to see my dad only 2 weekends per month. After that I held some resentment towards my dad. I dreaded when it was time to see him. He had sold what used to be our house, moved back to his hometown, opened a mechanic shop and lived in this shop. He was an alcoholic who always tried to sober up when I came to stay him. He was miserable, lonely and depressed. He always tried to clean up his house when I went to stay with him, even though it still smelled like alcohol, gunpowder, gasoline and those car oils. And sometimes I found dirty laundry stacked in the laundry room. When I turned 15 I started to see him less. I refused to go stay with him and made up excuses. I only visited him a few times a year. One day I went to visit him without informing him. I found him drinking while watching a football game. He was surprised to see me. He quickly started getting rid of his beer cans, cleaning his kitchen, asking for if I was hungry so that he could order pizza. And I just lashed out at him and told him that's why mum left him, because he was so miserable and could keep his shit together. I felt guilty afterwards. He loves old classic muscle cars, and when I turned 18 he got me a 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS, which he had fixed it himself. Later me and Mum sold it and got a Honda Civic. Anyway, last week I came to visit my mum. I was planning to stay for the weekend. On Saturday night I overheard my mum and my stepdad talking about what happened 12 years ago, bragging about their affair, and not once even regretting how it affected my dad. All they said that felt sorry for him. I couldn't help but cry. I wanted to confront her but I couldn't bring myself. I wanted to call her names, insult her, but I didn't have the strength. I was full of mixed emotions, but I felt guilty the most. All this time I held a resentment towards my dad, thinking he was the bad guy, but he was only the victim of my mum's affair. He never recovered from the affair due to his depression and anxiety issues. And all the time I thought he faked to care about me. He genuinely cared for me, and he always tried to stay strong and smile for me. I left the following day and found my dad at his mechanic's shop and hugged him. I was crying and he was puzzled, and I kept saying sorry repeatedly. When he managed to calm him down, I told him everything, and I apologized even more. And when I asked why he didn't fight my mum for my custody, he told me that he knew that his depression and anxiety issues plus his PTSD would make him to be unfit parents. And he never wanted to ruin the relationship between me and my mum, because he knew I loved my mum and his ex-best friend loved me and would take care of me more than he would. He said that it was not my fault and forgave me, and he was happy I found out. I want to make it up to my dad, but I don't know how. Please help. Too long didn't read. Mum cheated and left dad for his best friend. Made him look bad. I grew a resentment towards him. Now I want to make it up to him. Update. Sorry for the late update. It's a bit long, but a few of you insisted I update them. For those who missed out on my previous post, check out my profile. I posted it on my profile. First, thanks to all those who took their time to comment and offer support. As some of you said, there are two sides in every story, and I decided to listen my dad's side. He admitted to being distant and not affectionate after his last deployment due to his PTSD, but the affair had been going on when he was in deployment. I confronted my mum a few days later after my post, and she was defensive at first. She said that I was not grateful for what she did for me, and that she simply protected me from my father. She called him a few names. I didn't want to argue, and I had already chosen my next words carefully. I told her that my father was a good man who was broken by the betrayal of the two people he trusted the most and worst. You turned his own daughter against him. I appreciate and am grateful for everything, but it's time I choose for the parent who put his own daughter's need first, even it means making hard sacrifices, and not the one who wanted the daughter to satisfy her own needs. Goodbye, Mom. I will keep in touch. Before I left, tears had been building in her eyes, and she just remains silent. She has tried to reach out to me, but I just ignore her or ask her to stop disturbing me. I don't to block her, but my message is loud and clear. My aunt has recently reached out to me and told me that my mum is depressed. Well, her husband can take care of her. As for my dad, most of you suggested I sell a Civic and buy the Chevy Chevelle SS back. I couldn't find the person I sold it to, but I decided to look for old worn-out muscle cars to fix. I have been searching for a while. It was hard, but I had help of a few friends and even some Redditors who reached out to me on chat. Almost 2 weeks ago I was lucky and found an old wrecked 1970 Dodge Charger. And yeah, I sold the Civic to afford the Charger. My dad was kinda of upset, but when I told him the reason, he brightened up. He's been more than happy to show me how to fix it. I bought an apartment an hour away from his mechanic shop. One Redditor suggested I do a makeover at his place. Well, I have been making time, and I have started to renovate and do a makeover. And my friends from college who are studying interior design have decided to help. It took him a little of convincing as he felt embarrassed, but he finally joined the train. Now every day after college I go to visit him, and on weekends I spend time with him and talk about anything. Mostly he's interested in my life. He likes soccer and is a big fan of Arsenal, so I always keeps him company during match days. Pick the opponent's team to add fun, and I'm learning a little of football. Since I sold my car, he has allowed me to use his 1977 Pontiac Firebird. He has been with it since I was 11, and as long as I can remember he has never let anyone drive it. Since I have been around more often, he has stopped his drinking habits. Maybe a few and I join him on game nights, but who can blame us? So there is your update. If you made it this far, I guess it is a happy ending. Thanks all of you all again. Third story. My 25 female boyfriend 25 male says really mean things to me in his sleep. I need to preface this by saying that when my boyfriend is awake, he is wonderful and I couldn't be happier. We laugh and joke all day, and spending time with him in general is truly a joy. Yes, I mean this. No, he doesn't upset me at all when he's awake. Also, for some background, He works night shifts at a job he really hates. So when he comes home, he likes to just relax, unwind, usually with whiskey or beer. Typically we cuddle or I massage his back and legs until he's drunk enough to fall asleep. Edit: he doesn't need alcohol to fall asleep. I worded this wrong. He can fall asleep fine without it. I just meant that the alcohol makes him fall asleep quicker than usual. I have insomnia, so I usually end up staying awake for a while after he falls asleep. I'm also really sensitive to aggressive tone of voice due to some past trauma. He only really talks in his sleep if I shift too quickly or try to move him over a little bit if I have no room on the bed, or if I move the blanket too much and it disturbs him. He usually snaps at me saying quit ducking, moving, or can you please ducking stop, or oh my ducking god. Just things in general that give off an indication that he's really annoyed with me. There's also been a couple unprompted times where he's stirred or rolled over, I guess disturbing his own sleep, and said things like I can do better than this, etc. Because of my sensitivity, I usually end up crying over these things. I try to make it a point not to bring up the things he says does in his sleep unless they're funny, which sometimes happens because, for one, I really don't think he can control it. And two, when I have brought up things he said, he always ends up feeling horribly guilty for the things he says, and that makes me feel guilty for saying anything. Last night, in his sleep, he ripped my blanket away from me. We sleep with separate blankets because this has been an issue in the past, and tucked it under himself and his own blanket. It was really cold in the room, so I tried to take it back, but he grabbed my hand and shoved it away. I didn't want to have to wake him up, but he's a lot stronger than me, and no matter what I tried to do, I just couldn't get the blanket back. I shook him gently and kept saying, baby, can you please give me back my blanket? I was met with sleepy grunts, but he still wouldn't give it back. Finally, after a little persistence, he sat up really quickly and yelled, what do you want? Jesus, you're annoying. I said, I just want my blanket back, please. He shoved it towards me and nearly knocked me off the bed, and then instantly laid back down and started snoring. I didn't sleep at all last night because of this. It's really eating at me. I really don't want to be annoying to him, especially when he's trying to rest after work. But I also don't know how I can keep putting up with this. Part of me wonders if he actually means any of the things he says. When he woke up this morning, I couldn't bring myself to say anything about it, but I also couldn't look him in the eye. I guess my question in this is, am I being too sensitive? Should I bring this up to him? I don't know how much that would accomplish because he usually has no recollection of it and doesn't know how to control it. What can I do to keep my sensitivity from affecting our relationship and the way I see him myself? Update. First, I'd like to address the comments accusing my boyfriend of being an alcoholic, being abusive, accusing me of lying about how happy I am in the relationship, or claiming he wasn't actually asleep during this and wanted an excuse to abuse me. Y'all are, and really I cannot stress this enough, ducking crazy. What? Hey, leap. He functions just fine without alcohol, and I've seen him go weeks without it. He doesn't need alcohol to fall asleep. He drinks after work because that's how he likes to unwind. The same as one might go to a bar on the weekend. And for those of you with anecdotes about how your partners started off like this before leading into full-on abuse, I am deeply sorry that you endured that, and I wish healing on all of you, but that's not what this is. I've known my boyfriend for 10 years. He doesn't have an abusive bone in his body. On to the update. Shortly after I made this post, I asked him if he thought I was annoying. He said of course not, and asked me what prompted the question. When I brought up what he did in his sleep, he got very quiet for a short while and then asked why didn't you slap the shit out of me, which made me chuckle quite a bit. He then went on to say that he would prefer I tell him about the things he says in his sleep, stressing that if he crosses a line like that ever again and I have full permission to smack the life out of him, I never would. I asked him if it was a possibility that the alcohol was making his sleep more restless, and he said maybe. I don't know. I then asked him if it would be a possibility to try going a couple nights without alcohol, and he agreed. Since then, our co-sleeping has been wonderful, restful, and peaceful except for the night before last. He shook me awake while I was sleeping, and I asked him what was up. Baby, I'll show you. I had no idea what he was talking about, so I asked him. He said I'll show you. I said, baby, are you still asleep? Yeah, I'll show you. He instantly started snoring again. I must have giggled myself back to sleep. Anyways, I wanted to thank everyone for the kind advice, and we've decided to cut alcohol out before bed as it seemed to help immensely. Bless 3. Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to our channel.